John, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing, Steve? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm doing well. Uh you have an MSP,
Correct.
and I have you on here today because I want to talk about some forensics stuff because that's always fascinated me. But before I just dive in and start asking you some questions about all that, I want to talk about kind of, who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you now? So you weren't always an MSP. Before you started your MSP, uh, you did something else. So what was that?
Yes. So now I'm with TCG Network Services in Natick, Massachusetts. But prior to that, I was a Air Force intelligence officer, and then transitioned to the FBI, where I had a 17-year career as initially an intelligence analyst. So they're not special agents; they're the support people in the background who do the analysis behind investigations, looking for links between investigations and digging deeper into cases. And then I became a supervisory intel analyst, and then a chief security officer, and then an administrative officer for the FBI. But my time with digital forensics was substantially with my role as an intelligence analyst and a supervisory intelligence analyst, working all manner of crimes: counterintelligence, criminal, cyber, and of course terrorism.
And I misspoke. You didn't start an MSP, or at least I don't think you did. You are the director of cybersecurity at TCG Network Services.
That's right. Yes. So TCG has been in place well before me. They have been in existence for about 30 years. They were initially a break fix company, and then transitioned over a decade ago to a managed services provider. They brought me on to enhance the cybersecurity offering that we have, and to work on cybersecurity for all of our customers.
Now, do they have any affiliation with TCG, the telecom consulting group?
No relation.
For if you don't know who they are one of those like master agent type companies. So, if you guys want to get like the recurring commission on everything from VoIP to internet and all that kind of stuff. So,
Good to know.
yeah. All right. So, forensic analysis. That sounds boring. It really does. It sounds boring.
Yep.
So what does that actually look like? What is a day of a forensic analysis and analyst look like?
I would say it's 99% boring. So the day in the life, it really depends. I mean, honestly, there are thousands of incredible people in this field. So I wouldn't want to speak for all of them. I'll just give my own perspective on it. But to give you an example, going through a computer, looking at the forensics for that, every computer has thousands of events that happen on that computer every day. For me to log into this podcast, I had to go and open a web browser, and activate some links, and all of those have digital forensic footprints that happen on the computer. So there's forensics happening all the time, and with everything that you're doing on the computer. It could be as simple as opening a Word document, or it could be a program running in the background that the user doesn't have any knowledge about.
Okay. And that sounds still boring. Yeah. So when you take that information, it's one thing for an MSP to just have all this software to, spy on our clients and whatever we need to do to provide support, right?
They call that auditing.
Yeah, auditing. We audit all of our clients, right?
Right.
But when it comes to I feel like there's two layers here, right? So there's cybersecurity, which is what you do right now. And, you have logs and you audit things, and it's really important to go through that. But when it when it shifts into forensics, that's because typically there's something legal involved, right?
Yes. So typically that would be where there's some type of maybe insider threat activity or some other type of activity that occurred. And in my experience, it was during the Boston Marathon bombing, which is the biggest forensics case that I worked on. Literally looking for what a day in the life of the marathon bombers was, and piecing together through that digital forensics a day in the life of them, their pattern of life, and what we could connect to them digitally with their actions related to the Boston Marathon bombing and all the events surrounding it. So it starts honestly. When I started looking at Jahar Sarnaev's computer, we pulled about a million events from his laptop through Splunk, and I began its simplest possible way with an Access database. So we pulled Splunk events into an Access database, and I literally culled through a million events over the course of a couple of months because of the nature and the level of that case and the attention it was going to bring. We needed to make sure we did everything as detailed as we could, making sure that we didn't miss a single item. And so that was extremely boring. It took a long time. I was, looking at Access database items and artifacts in there for probably a month. But making sure that I didn't miss anything was absolutely crucial when it came to that investigation. So every time something happened on that computer, it could have been a system, process running on the computer. I would look at, those events. But typically what I was looking for is activity that Jahar was working on when it came to his establishing a pattern of life for him, as well as then figuring out, what he was doing to prep for the marathon bombing. And a big component of the marathon bombing trial was his radicalization. So we really needed to look at what process Jahar was doing to either receive radicalization training from somebody else or to self-radicalize. And so that became a big part of the work that we did. It also became a big part of the trial at the end of it, as we started to look at, whether or not he was forced by his brother to do some of this activity, or whether he initiated some of this activity himself.
Now, from what I remember, the Boston Marathon bombing took place back in 2013. I'm looking at that because I couldn't remember how long ago it was. I can't believe it's been almost 9 years.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking like, oh, it was just a few years ago, but it was just a few years ago. Like 1980 was only 20. Oh wait, no, it's 40 years ago now. Right? Like,
exactly. As a result, you see much more gray in my beard.
all right. So it was two brothers, and what they did was they made like homemade pressure cooker bombs. And
Correct.
and they detonated these things near the finish line of the race.
That's right.
Now, the thing that confuses me is I'll be the first to admit I don't like watching the news because it's, I think, more frustrating for me than anything else. It's like when you watch a movie where it's like one of those I don't know, first half of the final season of Ozark, okay? I promise it's going to make sense in a second. Like for the majority of the season, and I'm going to not ruin anything, I promise, guys, okay? No spoilers. But I just kept thinking, why are you doing that the entire time? like, So, um, gosh, it was going to make sense. So that's kind of how I feel with the news.
Sure.
So
Get that.
if that's how I feel with the news, that means I don't really know all this stuff that takes place and all the details. You know, I know when the president does something silly, or when Kanye and what's her name, the Kardashian one, gets divorced or whatever, right? But
Mhm.
I don't know the details of like important things happening in my area, in the country, around the world, like I should, because I just want to scream at the news. So, with that said, why did they do it?
That is a really deep, complicated question. I really don't know exactly what their thought process was as far as what they why they chose a target. Um, I should just say that they were not cooperative at all.
Okay.
Jahar did have some interviews in custody, but um, those are and a lot of those are public record now that you could view through the lens of the trial. Um, but I mean, clearly, clearly they were motivated to, bring some type of justice to America, because we had been, a great, oppressor, and we had been, in their eyes, we had been, um, reaching out across the world, conducting terrorism of our own, and they wanted to, strike back at us. And from the forensics, it's possible that Jahar chose the marathon because he had been there a year prior. So it's possible that he picked the target, but we don't know that for sure. And again, a lot of digital forensics is circumstantial in and of itself. It needs to, you need to have other things to back that up, but digital forensics can help with putting together the picture. So there's a lot of things that are still unclear as far as that. I mean, the motivation was, terrorism. They were radicalized. They were Islamic radicals. They were intent on causing harm and destruction. But their exact motivations, I don't know, and their exact reason for picking the target, I don't know.
All right. So, digital forensics is probably even a little different going from, the FBI into what I think we can call the private sector, right? So, how is it different? And I guess what I'm asking is like, does the FBI have cooler tools than we get access to, and like, that kind of stuff?
Sure. Well, I can tell you when we first started this, and as I had said, I had worked on a couple of different forensic investigations. The tools get better over time. The initial digital forensics I did back in 2004 was essentially clicking through almost like HTML links to different forensic artifacts, and that might be like a Word document or a link file for a shortcut for like a Windows process. So that was incredibly painstaking work. That was incredibly slow and moved at almost human speed. Whereas by the time the marathon came along, we still had a lot of work to do. There was a lot of painstaking work that still needed to be done, but the software was much better, and we used a commercial off the shelf software called Forensic Toolkit. So we used that to conduct the forensics for the bombing. So the technology has gotten better as a result of the overwhelming amount of digital media that was submitted to the FBI through our websites or through email, we were able to, the FBI was able to build a beta tested program where it can actually do really good facial recognition and has great capabilities. So the technology has definitely gotten better. It was like I said, human level to start, working now to machine speed for computer forensics, and a lot of it now can be automated. So the forensic work is, a lot of that is automated. When you're talking about imaging hard drives and processes, you're essentially running them through an automated process. But then the actual analysis is still somewhat manual. The tools can create snapshots for you and figure out, maybe sort things for you in a better way now than they used to be able to do. There's still a level of human analysis that needs to be done, because the humans are the ones that have to convince other humans that this activity is significant.
Sorry, I didn't want to start talking while I was muted. I do that every show, every episode, and today I'm determined. I'm determined. All right, so it sounds like, I mean, obviously, 9 years ago, when you were doing the investigation, I would like to think that the tools have improved since then, even, right? So,
Yes.
are you doing any forensic type stuff today as an MSP?
MSPs have the capability to do it. We have not kind of dove into the forensic aspect of computer forensics to support the types of lawsuits or instances where computer forensics would be needed to do what I did with the marathon bombing. So typically the level of forensics we're doing is looking at computer files, how those files are either a threat or not a threat, trying to analyze, how the file got onto a computer, looking at log files to figure out, okay, what is, how did this file appear? Looking at audit logs to figure out, okay, what other processes may have, gotten that file from point A to point B. So that's more of what we're doing from the cybersecurity end for an MSP day to day. I'm sure there are MSPs I know there are other companies out there that do digital forensics when it comes to supporting investigations for civil and criminal, cases in court. That's not something that we jump into ourselves right now. So a lot of the experience I gained from the marathon bombing forensics, I try to adopt to what we do at the MSP, which is more about computer security and looking at the digital forensics using the tools that we have available. To me, we've talked about it here, and it could be something that we do down the road, but there's it's a major commitment to take on for a company to go into that realm, because there's a series of processes you need to put in place. You need to buy forensic imaging software. You need to have forensic setups where you can make sure that the initial evidence, that whether that be a thumb drive, hard drive, whatever the case may be, is preserved. So, the FBI is very good when it comes to preservation of evidence, making working copies of evidence, but they have a very strict chain of custody. And so for a private business to do that, there's a good amount of overhead that has to be put in place first. And it might not be worth it for some companies to do that. It might be just easier or better to send that to another company that does that as their main mission. So, for us, for our MSP, what we're focusing on is more the cybersecurity end and the IT support end. And as something like that were to occur, that's something we might move into down the road. But I think at this point, what we were looking at is more of trying to maintain, just to stay in our lane as best as possible, and then to work with teams that have all of that already in place. Because again, for the marathon bombing, we had a CART team, and they're the ones who do all the initial computer processing. So they're the experts who handle all of the evidence. They process it, and then they create working copies for analysts like myself to be able to work on. So if you don't have that in place, it can be quite expensive to institute something like that in a way that would stand up in a courtroom for either civil or criminal litigation.
So who is the right type of person, or what is the right type of company that I'm trying to think of how to word this. So one, what is the right type of person to decide maybe I want to do this, forensic thing and work with lawyers and, law enforcement, whoever, and make this like my job. And is it something that a single person can do? So I guess I want to ask, like, obviously the FBI has, I'm not going to call it unlimited resources, but it's got, what, tens of thousands of employees, agents, hundreds of thousands. There's a lot, right?
Yeah, it's about, I think last I checked, it was about 37 or 38,000 employees, of which about 13,000 or 14,000 were special agents.
Right. So obviously the FBI's got a little more resources than like you or I. So that said, is there like a, must be this tall to ride the roller coaster kind of thing? Like, can a single person do this and be able to maintain chain of custody and provide results that hold up in court? I'm not asking about the financial outlay of all the infrastructure. I'm just asking if one guy, one dude can do it.
Yeah. I think it depends on the scale of the litigation or the trial that they'd be planning for. When it came to something like the marathon bombing, we had a team of people, and I either wrote or supervised, writing, 80 to 90 reports related to computers or other devices or other removable media that were affiliated with the marathon bombing investigation. So it really depends on the scale. But yes, to answer your question, there are a lot of digital forensics majors that are out there in universities, so people can focus on that. We have a lot of good people that I know who were affiliated with the marathon bombing that actually do some of the teaching of digital forensics work and teach those classes at universities as well. And then there's SANS classes that you could take for digital forensics to get your certification in that. Typically, the FBI would have their people go through that SANS training as well. So yes, there's absolutely a path where one person could, if this is their passion, they could start downloading free forensics tools and then moving toward a system of education, whether that be college or whether it just be certificates and on-the-job experience. So there's absolutely a path for that, and you don't have to go through law enforcement. There are really, really incredible civilian forensic companies out there that have good capabilities and are looking for that up and coming generation of people.
Now let's talk about companies. So I know you said your company is at this time maybe not ready or willing or whatever it is, and that's fine, to provide this type of service. Can, like, I'll say your typical MSP, can this be something that they offer?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's, we could offer it here. It's just, again, the investment on the personnel, the equipment, and the training and the resources. So, it depends. I'm sure there are some MSPs that offer this, and, it really anybody can do it with the right, people, processes, equipment, and training. So, I mean, the big thing are, hiring the right people, finding people who might have some experience already, and then hiring them, training them to follow the processes that you put in place, and then working with the equipment to make sure that everything that they do, from ingestion of that media, through preparation of trial exhibits, through the trial testimony itself, is as flawless as possible.
All right. Let's talk about kind of I don't know, like maybe the life cycle of a single forensic piece of evidence or case. However, we want to look at this. I'm kind of looking to you to kind of guide how that works. But let's say we've got a small single person MSP in a not a major city, like a suburb kind of town, right? Um, and they work with local law enforcement on simple stuff. Um, I'm trying to think, like, what would a simple forensic thing be? Maybe, looking at somebody's cell phone after somebody got murdered or something like that, but not like a big let's set a bomb off kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So I think, in the simplest terms, I'd say like the most common scenario could be theft of somebody's proprietary information. So,
There you go.
for example, we'd have, let's say a person from our company decided to, leave with some type of proprietary information, designs, system plans, network diagrams, anything like that. And let's say they want to bring it to a competitor. Well, in that case, law enforcement may or may not be interested in that, but there could be civil ramifications for that person as well as that company. So when you talk about, a murder and the digital forensics that go along with that, clearly there's very, very high stakes there. And that should be in the realm of law enforcement to be the lead on that. But when you talk about something like that, where we're talking about a person leaving a company and stealing data, or selling data, while they're still employed with that company, that's something that could be done by, an MSP or other forensic company out there. And so that process would probably look like, again, just as this is a hypothetical, let's just say that this person, in the old school way, just took a thumb drive, plugged it into the computer, copied over the materials, and then removed that thumb drive, brought it to their second computer at home, or brought it to, a new company computer and plug that thumb drive in. There's a lot of different artifacts that process would leave. It would leave some footprints and fingerprints. So, from the digital forensics perspective, MSPs, a lot of them probably have the ability to look at, and we do have the ability to look at, thumb drive insertions into computers. We have the ability to look at when what files are being moved to those computers, and so we'd have the ability to audit that. And so that's something that you would do in the forensics investigation. You would say, okay, we need to look at when these files were essentially created on the thumb drive, and try to get a timestamp of that, to figure out, okay, when did this activity occur? And then you want to marry that up with the activity on, the losing company's computer, to make sure that is as close to a Loctite case you can. And then, again, there might be, when someone leaves the company, the the victim company has no ability, unless it's with law enforcement, to be able to recover those documents on their own, because there's one company can't just walk into another company and look at a computer. So there would have to be potentially some law enforcement interaction with that, in a situation with someone grabbing a thumb drive and taking it away. But again, that might be enough information for a company to just say, okay, to go to law enforcement and say, okay, we think we have a case here, and then a local state law enforcement would then probably use a legal process to try to, maybe a search warrant or something like that to be able to recover that artifact, which could be a document, again, like a network plan or something like that, network diagram or something like that. So once it leaves the company's hands, the company is somewhat limited. They can determine the nature of the breach. They could determine the nature of the theft, but again, they're limited with what they can do once it leaves their property. The same can be done though if it's a digital, if it's not just a thumb drive, if it's an upload to Dropbox or something like that. Then there may be more fingerprints that someone could look at there, because what IPs. Let's say someone used a Dropbox account or some other type of file storage account. Not to pick on Dropbox, but okay, well then they might be able to pull some data if the person did it within the realm of this company, the victim company's holdings. They could say, okay, well, which IP address did that document get uploaded to, and then which IP address did that document get downloaded to? So if someone were to do something like that, probably not the cleanest way for someone to steal stuff, but I dealt with a lot of criminals, and sometimes criminals can be somewhat lazy, or can be, if they're not trained on how to do it, can leave footprints like that. So that's one way that for a small case like that, a company might be able to provide some support to forensics in a hypothetical case.
All right, so you just kind of blew my mind, because now what's fun is, and also a curse is I'll hear something, and for example, you were talking about the flash drive, putting it in the computer, grabbing some data, and then it gets me thinking, like, I wonder how many MSPs are supporting medical facilities, companies that have HIPAA requirements, right? And don't have anything set up to audit if a flash drive is inserted, what data is moved to a flash drive, or at the very least, something set up to just like disable external hard drives or something like that, it just makes me wonder how many MSPs don't think about things like that.
Well, it's one of the things that we do think about here. And again, part of that is, transitioning from the Bureau and the work that I did, looking at, counterintelligence cases of economic espionage and things like that. It's one of the things that that I talked about with our team here. We had some tools in place, and we put in a lot of other tools in place. And so the capabilities we have now are much better than, what maybe a typical MSP has in place. I mean, I think a lot of MSPs who deal with compliance issues, file integrity monitoring and such type of compliance issues are going to need something like that to be able to show an audit trail when documents might be moving from one company to another. So, there's processes like Microsoft in Office 365 has some level of file integrity monitoring that you can put in place. Then there's other programs you can buy. We have partnered with a company called ThreatLocker. They're a zero trust company, but they have the ability to do device control and to limit devices from connecting hard drives or external hard drives or thumb drives or any USB device. And they also have the ability to provide audits of what's going on a computer. Again, down to that really, really, as you would say, boring, minuscule level, but literally down to someone trying to add an application in a browser. It's like a plugin. So there's a lot of tools out there. There's what we try to do is look at tools that give us more bang for the buck. So maybe it does 2 or 3 different things at the same time. Because a lot of them you can use for forensic or auditing type work. And then, again, we look at that one for a zero trust, tool as well. So, so that if something got through a, antivirus or, EDR, endpoint detection and response, then ThreatLocker could be like a last line of defense against the hacker at the endpoint. So there's stuff out there. There's stuff that could be put in place, and I don't know. I think I'm trying to put in place everything I can here based on my experience with what we've done. Over what I had done in the FBI. But I wouldn't be able to speak for everybody. I don't know how every MSP is running and whether this is something that they do consider as critical.
With somebody that wants to do digital forensics, I know like here in Ohio, I believe you have to have a private investigator license to be able to do that. Is that common in most states?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
I haven't looked into it.
You had a special badge where you didn't need to worry about that. So.
Yeah, I had FBI credentials, so I could just, and again, our mission, our objective was clear. Like we're there to try to find some justice for the families and the people who are completely destroyed, in some cases mentally, but in a lot of cases physically by the bombers. So, we had a pretty clear mission, pretty clear idea of what we needed to do. But that was given to us by 2 homicide bombers. Most people are not going to have that clear, clear objective. And especially on the civil side, there might be a lot of gray area in some of the different situations. If you're interested, I can tell you about the, how that forensics, did work for the marathon when it comes to moving articles from one device to the other.
That was going to kind of be where I was going to take this. So before we do that, there's one question that somebody wanted me to ask you.
Sure.
He wants to know if there's a forensic software that you recommend, and I know that's probably, you might almost be a little out of touch with it since it may have been a few years since you've used it, but is there one that you know of that's like really awesome that we can get our hands on?
My experience was with the forensics toolkit, and I wouldn't want to just give opinions on other things that I hadn't worked with. So
got it.
That still exists. I know it's still a tool that people use, and it has grown with technology. So they've tried to add different elements to an investigator's toolkit within the forensic toolkit. So that's really the only one I would would have someone look at, because I don't know the environment right now. I'm sure there's other good tools out there as well. And I don't have, the background for a specific tool to say whether or not I would use it or not. A lot of my, recommendations are based on actual use myself.
So my cat is not the timer, just so you know. So I want to talk about the chain of custody. I know that that's something that, at least on the criminal side, judicial side, whatever, that's something that's pretty critical for anything to hold up in court. So
Sure.
You mentioned earlier that you have to like make a copy or an image of a drive.
Mhm.
So that way you can do all the forensic work on the image instead of on the original, which makes sense.
Right.
So can I just get like, an Apple time machine backup and call it a day? Like what, or like you have to use a special imaging thing?
Yeah. And that's where, that's where process comes in place too, because the tools are one thing, but the process is really what's critical with that, because, you might be able to use almost any tool out there to make a copy, but something that would stand up in trial is, okay, you need to do like an MD5 hash, or for those who don't know, it's like almost like a social security number of a file. It might be a SHA-1 or a SHA-256 hash. Again, those are unique identifiers to the individual identification of a file in its certain state. So if I had a PDF file and I added something to it and then saved it, it would have a different hash, or could have a different hash. So what you would need to do is when that image comes into your custody. So, for example, in the situation of somebody who obtained a hard drive from a search warrant, there's each of those files would be on that original piece of evidence would be cataloged, and then what the team with their process should do is to look at the working copy, make sure that there's a mirror image of all the cataloged files on one copy that marries up with that original piece of evidence. And that's one of those critical processes that would need to be put in place in order to make sure that a piece of evidence like that, or a device or a copy of a device, would hold up in court.
That makes sense. I'm sure the judge wants to know that you didn't tamper with things.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
And, the defense would typically, in a criminal trial, the defense is going to try to discredit their witness. They're going to discredit the evidence. They're going to discredit the narrative. So one of the best ways they can do that is to try to discredit the process by which something came into the hands of law enforcement, or a litigant of some type. So that's going to be one of the first ways that they would want to try to create a reasonable doubt, is to say, well, how do we know that this document, or that this document came from this device and this device wasn't tampered with? So processes are absolutely critical to put in place, in addition to the technology.
I think that's safe to say for every company, processes are critical to the success, to the health of the business, to the potential growth of the business. Just think, if you had no processes in place, you have nothing that guarantees you're going to do it the same way every time. So I'm sure that that's a thing when it comes to forensic work. You have to have a proven method of, I'm gonna make my images, I'm gonna get the MD5 hash, and then I'm gonna go to town and start looking at logs and seeing what I can see. Now, what are some other, I don't want the book, man, but like, what are some other like really important processes that maybe are, I don't know, misunderstood, or people just don't know because they're not doing forensic stuff? Like, it's fascinating to me. Like, I know what an MD5 hash is, and I've used them in the past for, downloading large contents of data or whatever, right? But I've never really put thought into how forensics works. And after you said it, it was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, another part with the process is the training of the analysts. So to give you an example, when we were first going through, I think that the totality was about 70 terabytes of data that we went through for the marathon bombing investigation. And We had FBI Boston had support from FBI headquarters, the counterterrorism division, as well as a bunch of different units to include CGIS at the FBI. However, Boston analysts were the ones, and TDY, or temporary duty analysts to Boston from other field offices or headquarters, were the ones who were doing most of the work. But we would get calls and say, "Hey, have you given thought?" Sometimes people would send in pictures of the TV, and would say, "Hey, have you given thought to this or that?" And we would get those from the public, but we would also get those from investigators at other field offices or headquarters sometimes. And one common theme was people who didn't know the forensic side of things, and that there existed a path on the computer to the location of that file, would be sending leads to us. Leads is just basically like a way of saying it's a ticket almost, to say, "Hey, look at this," because we think that a big thing at the time was we know the marathon bombers have hit. We didn't know who they were, or we didn't know their entire realm of people. So once we captured Jahar, Tamerlan was deceased at this point. All we had really to go on was really either a non-cooperative or somebody who's was duplicitous with respect to the information Jahar would give us, or the computer forensics. So we had to look at the actual computers that he was using, his phones. We had to look at computers Tamerlan were using, and to look at to find out in the immediate term, in the week to 2 weeks after, were they targeting other stuff? Were they working with people outside of their initial circle of the two of them to conduct follow-on attacks in Boston or elsewhere? And so from a computer forensics perspective, it was really critical for us to be able to look at those computers and analyze. So this is where the forensic tool is one thing, but the training is so critical, because the forensic tool in certain cases pointed us to, well-known locations. So here's kind of a funny one that we got leads from someone saying, "Hey, we think the marathon bombers were targeting Fenway Park." And so we're like, okay, clearly we need to jump on that. Fenway Park is one of the most, especially for Red Sox fans, one of the most adored stadiums in the country. So, but other people find it incredible too when they come to visit. So clearly it's a significant target, like the marathon would be, like the Boston Marathon. So we needed to take that seriously. But doing the investigation on it, looking for the path, and again, that's a critical component of forensics, is the file path. It turned out that Jahar every day visited a certain weather website, and every day on that website took a live picture of Fenway Park in any type of weather. So we were able to determine, based on the file path and some of the boring stuff, what that was actually not a target, that was literally just his web browsing every day, his browsing activity to a certain weather site. And so we were able to, say that we were able to limit the resources necessary to investigate that bad lead, by, conducting the forensics, looking at the actual device and saying, okay, we understand what you're saying, and clearly that would be a significant threat. But in this case, based on our analysis and the training that we have and our experience, that is not something that he was targeting. It was literally him visiting this website.
That's really interesting. Now, I didn't realize that the brother was deceased. Was it, police shooting kind of thing, or what happened there?
Yeah. So Tamerlan and Jahar, when, to take you back a bit, Thursday, the 18th, in 2013, we released images, that we had of Tamerlan and Jahar, not knowing their names at that time. So again, forensically looking back, we were able to determine that Jahar saw the images on TV, reached out to Tamerlan via phone and said, we we didn't have the actual verbiage, so I'm paraphrasing here, but basically we need to get out of Dodge. So Jahar was on his way up from UMass Dartmouth to pick up Tamerlan, and we believe, based on witness accounts and stuff, that they may have been headed to New York City. So they actually had in their possession still a pressure cooker bomb as well as multiple pipe bombs, and so because they essentially were, flushed in that situation, they were now on the run, and they felt like it was only a certain amount of time before they were going to be identified. So Jahar and Tamerlan, took off and were headed essentially to another target because of that.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Now,
So to just answer a little more of your question with respect to what happened with them, they ended up hijacking this really nice person who ended up he's probably the only person in Massachusetts to pull over on the side of the road when they were sending a text message. But he pulled over on the side of the road to send a text message and was carjacked by the two marathon bombers. So they got in his SUV and kept him in there as a prisoner, and started the drive, which to what we think was New York. He subsequently was able to escape when they were refilling for gas. Again, forensically, we have the video showing all that by pulling, gas station video camera footage, ATM footage. We were able to forensically reconstruct the entire path that they took that night, that we called the Night of Terror, where they killed Officer Sean Collier at MSP at MIT to be able to steal his gun, and then they carjacked this victim. So that night, they ended up getting into a shootout where they were throwing the pipe bombs at police in Watertown, Massachusetts, and then shooting at police with whatever weapons they had, and the police returned fire. So it was a big shootout in a residential neighborhood. Jahar ended up trying to run over police and ended up running over Tamerlan during that shootout as well. But Tamerlan had been shot and also was run over by his brother. And
Wow.
I believe he was fighting in the ambulance all the way to the hospital, and I think died at the hospital, or maybe in the ambulance on the way to the hospital.
And I know these were two people that did something terrible, but it does make you hopefully sit and wonder, what on earth was Jahar thinking running over his brother?
Well, he was trying to hit the police. So his brother and the police were fighting. So he probably was trying to rescue his brother. But as they were fighting, the police saw him coming, and they got out of the way. But Tamerlan was on the ground, so Jahar hit him. And kept going.
Well, I mean, at that point,
right?
And obviously, they caught him anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Eventually.
So, if you look at the Wikipedia page, the only true source for news,
it's my go-to for everything.
yeah. It looks like, and here's what's crazy to me is, like, the name looks like Dzhokhar, and you're saying Jahar.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I don't.
So from the forensics, again, looking at videos of the family and how they talk on video, you can get an idea for how they pronounce names and, how Jahar preferred to be called. I mean, that comes not only from the digital forensics, but the other parts of the investigation, like interviews of people. So we would interview professors, we'd interview classmates, and they would tell us how he preferred to be called, But you could just hear that straight up from the digital forensics too, when you listen to family videos when they're talking about him. So, yes, it looks like, Dzhokhar, something like that, but it's actually Jahar is how he pronounced it.
That is, I love learning how, words are pronounced, where they're just foreign words to me, and trying to figure out what is it, etymology of, or the
That's the
history of
name.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is fun for me. So it looks like Jahar is still going through court.
Yes. Yeah. He's still in the appeal process.
And I don't think we hear about, like, I remember hearing about the Boston bombing. Um, Everyone heard about that, but is this kind of stuff like still in the news?
In Boston, for sure. I know some of the Jahar trial stuff, people will still bring it up. And it might get a few seconds or a couple minute news blurb when there's a certain level to his appeals. I mean, he's on death row right now. He's actually at Supermax, but he's awaiting the death penalty. And so that appeal now, I believe, just recently went to the Supreme Court. So it had to make its way up the appellate process, and I believe is now at the Supreme Court.
Now, I I don't know how much you pay attention to Joe Rogan. I feel like I have to watch what I'm saying right. Poor guy. So I'll get in trouble for that in 10 years. But all right. So once all the once the appeal is done with the Supreme Court, regardless the income, um, regardless the outcome, let's say that they uphold the ruling and he stays on death row.
Mhm.
Once he's done at the Supreme Court, there's no more appeals, right?
I'm not sure. I mean, he had a really, really phenomenal legal team, paid for by us taxpayers. So I am not sure if the Supreme Court is the last step or whether there would be a follow-on appeal to them. I don't know that process. So, talking about it, I just wouldn't be able to give you the expert on that, the expertise on that.
Well, and I guess I might even be asking a more general question of, I'm not worried about like what his legal team does or anything that you're not allowed to tell me. Once somebody, gets the final answer from the Supreme Court, are they done? Like that's like the highest court they can get to. So they're done with appeals after that, right?
I would think so, but again, the legal team could decide to appeal some other aspect of the case or something like that as well. So, I'm just never sure, and again,
No, and that makes sense. So,
yeah.
So it could be the first time somebody is doing an appeal because the judge was not an unbiased judge or whatever, right? The judge had a bias, and then they go through the whole thing, and whether they win or lose, it might not change the total outcome. It may just change something, and then they want to start appealing other things too.
Yeah. So I think what they first appealed on was venue, and that he didn't get a fair trial or something
He
like
was in
that
Boston
because
or
he was in
something.
Boston and the venue was here. So that was my understanding of what they initially were appealing. So, but let's say that once his appeals are over, whenever that process finishes, then he would probably get a date, of when they were going to put him to death if the death penalty is upheld. Regardless, he's spending his days right now at Supermax in Florence, Colorado, versus death row. So he's not in the typical death row, which is in the Midwest, but he's at Supermax in Florence, Colorado.
Supermax is probably not a fun thing. We're just about out of time here. I just have one last thing I want to try and get out of you. I don't know how many questions it'll take. So one thing that personally I always wonder is why are people like on death row for like 20, 30, 50, however many years, right? So is it because appeals keep happening, or is it because they just here we'll do it in 2063. That's when we'll do it.
Yeah, I believe most of it is related to appeals.
Okay.
At least in this case, I know that that's what we're waiting on now is appeals. So there's obviously legal process in place. I don't know the circumstances around each individual case.
No,
Yeah,
and again, I'm not worried about
that appellate process. I would assume is what is the delay for some of these people.
got it. And I'm not going to ask you about individual people. I know that there are probably unique circumstances almost to every single one of them. But and I'm not going to tell you which side of the fence I'm on. It doesn't matter. I just know that I hear people say things like, I'm sick of taxpayer dollars wasting, because of this guy wanting to be on death row for 30 years or whatever. Like, they should have just shot him in the backyard of the courthouse and been done with it, or whatever, right? But it sounds like it's not that we're just like letting them hang out. There's a legal process that's still happening.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. And in the case of Jahar, I visited him there, and he has at least a couple hours a day of sunlight that he sees, but his cell is about a 7x12 cell, concrete.
You visited him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was able to provide. So I did a ton of the radicalization work on his case in conjunction with our team, and so I went out to provide a briefing to the team out there, like the psychologists and their psychological team that would be working with him about his radicalization and what he had done to self-radicalize to prep himself for the bombing. So when I was out there, I got to see him behind bars, and it was pretty cool. I actually got to see a lot of people on his cell block. So it was different people from organized crime, kingpins to leaders of white supremacist movements, to Robert Hansen, to Zacharias Moussaoui. So it was a pretty cool visit. But Jahar was there, and it's funny because they had said, like, well, he's definitely radicalized in the prison now. So he continued on that path that he started with the marathon bombing. But some of the guards didn't even know what he was in there for. They're like, I don't know, the kid's real quiet, he doesn't do anything. So it's really interesting, this lion that was outside, killing people, what he turned into in the prison system.
Yeah, prison changes people, man. And I thankfully don't know firsthand, but it is a tough thing for people to go through, especially, supermax or just like solitary confinement. I bet those are especially difficult to do, but
yeah, in his case, I mean, obviously for anybody, the biggest thing would be losing your freedom. But in his case, he has professional development programming. He has about 50 cable channels. Again, he has all of his needs taken care of as far as, haircuts and all that stuff. So he's treated very well there. Supermax has a bad reputation sometimes with certain groups, but they have again, processes and procedures. They have a ton of processes and procedures in place to guarantee an inmate's safety as well as the safety of the guards. And so he's in good hands there. I'm
the ignorant American, right? The only thing I know about Supermax and other prison whatever is what I see on TV and movies, right? So, everybody's got a shiv and, uh, you know, beat somebody up or become somebody's bitch. That's what you got to do on the first day, and whatever else you learn, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I have no idea what it's really like to be in prison, and uh, hopefully, I never will.
Right, me neither.
Um,
Yeah, in that case, Supermax is reserved for the people who are either the most notorious or would either be a threat to themselves,
threat to themselves, or others are a threat to them.
Substantially. Like there's a lot of people in the prison system that might be a threat to themselves or others, but these are people who could motivate other people to create, threats to other people. So that's why there would be some like white supremacist leaders in there, or organized crime leaders, and they're essentially isolated from other inmates, but for maybe an hour or two a day.
Yeah, and I'm also, I'll be honest, where I'm like torn about how some of that stuff works, just because like some people are just really bad people. Like, what do you do with them? And there's laws for a reason, and if they broke a law, I mean, we have policies and procedures within the entire legal system. So, I mean, I think, I guess all that to say, this is the whole thing, not just for Jahar. I mean, for anybody. The guy spending 12 years in jail for weed or whatever, right? The whole thing is a tangled mess, and it's not something that you can say it's black or white. Like, prison's bad or prison's good, or he deserved it or he didn't. It's like, I think it's one of those, everything's a gray area when it comes to all of that. But we have gotten way off track. So instead of continuing to have this depressing conversation about prison, I say we wrap up, John. Thank you so much. I wish I could have I wish I could almost like see what does like for the forensics show you, like if you could show me like, well, here's what we were able to, you said you were able to like look and see this is what their journey was like the entire night, thanks to ATM cameras and all this other stuff, right? Like, I would love to see what some of that stuff looks like, but I believe that's above my clearance.
Well, so that's the benefit of it being a generally public, trial. The way the FBI handled this was it was a criminal, it was a terrorism case, but it was all unclassified. So, what I had sent you was in the one of the links to the actual exhibits. So you can actually see the exhibits. Online, they're still available through the U.S. Attorney's Office and the trial records. So you could actually see in some cases they are, Twitter posts they had, or in other cases, they're spreadsheets with this data that I'm talking about with the forensics, or there's video that we pulled from local bars, ATMs, restaurants, pharmacies. Like everything is that was used in the trial are listed in the list of exhibits. So, you're welcome to look on there. Anybody's welcome to look. It's publicly available, so people could see some of those and see some of the activity, or see the exhibits for themselves.
Oh yeah, I see. Like, so what's cool for me is, I have no sense of how long a trial takes. Like, I only know like OJ's trial took forever, so I just assume everyone's does.
It's like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one, obviously it has to span across, sometimes there's continuances or holidays, and you're not working on weekends, that kind of thing. But this trial was only 19 days. That's it.
Yeah, the trial itself was relatively quick. The preparation was a year and a half to 2 years. So, both the defense and the prosecution, it took, a year and a half to get to that trial date. And that's doing the forensic work. It's doing the correlating all the witness interviews, correlating all the evidence, and the data. So, the trial's quick. The getting to the trial takes a really long time and a lot of painstaking work by teams and teams of people. I mean, we had, the defense team had I think at least 4 or 5 attorneys there, working full time on this. We had a team of about 15 to 20 investigators, of which I was a part, working on this. So, and that was full time. It wasn't just, we had hundreds of other people helping with, putting together stuff that we needed. So, it was a really good team effort, and it took a long time, but luckily we were able to show the jury how he self-radicalized and was completely complicit in this attack.
And I've got one final statement. I clicked that link, and it's going to be in the description or the show notes for you guys. And I went to, it's a BMP exhibit 1459 from day 6. And I clicked on it, and I've got gigabit internet. And this is loading about as fast as porn on dial-up. It's it's amazing.
Going back to the AOL days.
All right, John. Thank you so much for the conversation, man. This has been eye-opening, and I would love to have you back on. Maybe we can talk more about cybersecurity type stuff.
Sure.
And what MSPs should be doing for all of their clients and even themselves. What do you think?
All right, that sounds great. Yeah, happy to come back.
Fantastic.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
My pleasure. You have a good one, man.
Thanks, you too. Okay, bye.